I died in a fire at my own engagement party. I watched, helpless, as my fiancé rescued my half-sister instead of me. After that, this secret daughter of my father's got everything that should have been mine: my father, my fiancé, my house, my inheritance. It wasn't until my fiancé's brother, the one who could never stand me, crazily rammed his car into that despicable pair and ended up in prison, that the story finally ended. Then, I was reborn. This time, I pushed my fiancé away and walked straight up to his brother. Ever thought about being my side piece? The usually cold, arrogant man crushed his cigarette under his heel. I could be into that. I had to sneak around to throw my own engagement party. I was a rich family's daughter, and my fiancé, Julian, was the handsome but poor guy from school. He loved me very much. It sounded like a match made in heaven, like something out of a novel. But in reality, my parents just said I was being ridiculous. It's fine, they'll understand eventually, I thought to myself. But who would have known that a fire would break out at the party? My mom and I died in the flames, and all my hopes for eventually were extinguished in an instant. I could have escaped. But I was living out a real-life version of the farmer and the viper. On my way out, I grabbed a terrified Nina, who was frozen in shock. But at the critical moment, she shoved me back into the inferno. Nina was a younger student from Julian's university, someone who always acted as sweet and innocent as a little lamb. But in the flickering firelight, a horrifying smile spread across her face. "So, sis," she said, "who do you think he's going to save?" I was too stunned by the sudden turn of events to even think. I just stood there, dazed. And then I watched as Julian rushed in. I watched as he, without a moment's hesitation between the two of us, swept Nina into his arms and ran out. He never came back. Do you know what pain feels like? Being roasted by flames, suffocating on smoke, watching your own body be consumed by fire, it was agonizing. But it was nothing compared to the pain of being betrayed by the one you love most. And that wasn't all. After my soul broke free from my charred body, I floated in the air, looking down at the inferno. Only then did I realize the betrayal was just the beginning. Even more sickening were the vicious schemes hidden beneath the surface. My mom had said she wouldn't come to the party, but she had actually been waiting in a side hall the whole time. In the chaos of the fire, Nina pointed her in the wrong direction. Mom rushed in to save me and never came out. After Mom and I died, Nina and her mother seamlessly took our places, moving into the Ling family home as if they owned it. It turned out my dad, who had cultivated this perfect family man image for the public, had been cheating for over a decade. He had a secret daughter, Nina, stashed away the whole time. Later, Nina moved into my room and, bit by bit, erased every trace of me from the house. And Julian, he broke my heart completely. He held Nina, promising over and over, "Nina, it's always been you." His expression was even more devout than when he had proposed to me. It was as if our entire relationship was just a stain he couldn't wait to wash away. There was no justice in the world. Nina got everything that should have been mine. My father, my fiancé, my house, my money. She stole my life. They say a soul can't feel pain, but I was constantly being scorched by a surging tide of hatred. Until, with a splitting headache, I snapped my eyes open. In front of me, Julian leaned in nervously, hesitating whether to press the kiss to my forehead or my lips. Perfect. I was reborn. Back to the day Julian proposed to me. I quietly clenched my fists. It seemed fate wanted me to be the one to deliver payback to that bastard and his bitch. In my past life, when Julian proposed, I eagerly accepted. Amid the cheers and laughter of our friends, I rushed him off to a hotel. That night was once my most beautiful memory, but later, it became nothing but a bitter irony. Thankfully, none of that has happened yet. Right now, Julian stood before me in a bathrobe, water dripping from the tips of his hair. He looked at me, his lips pressed into a tight, solemn line. It was the same restrained expression he always wore whenever we were about to get intimate. I used to be obsessed with this look, the aloof ice prince forced off his pedestal, all flustered and shy. But now, it just made me sick. Because I wasn't the one who brought him down to earth. It was Nina. The thought of all those times we were together, when I gave him my everything and gazed at him with adoration. While he was silently despising his body's betrayal, begging for Nina's forgiveness in his mind over and over again. It made me want to throw up. And in fact, with my head pounding, I really did. I shoved Julian away and bolted for the bathroom. "Clara, are you okay?" Julian knocked on the door, his voice laced with an urgency that mimicked concern. I couldn't be bothered to answer. I just stared at myself in the mirror. Fair skin, gorgeous features, a knockout body. I was a fiery rose, but I had awkwardly squeezed myself into a long white dress. All to cater to Julian's taste. So stupid, Clara. I wanted to slap myself twice. But then I thought those slaps really belonged on Julian's face. I splashed my face with water and walked out of the bathroom, expressionless, avoiding Julian and heading straight for the closet. He awkwardly pulled back his hand and tried to laugh it off. "Are you all right? You scared me. Someone who didn't know better might think you threw up because I was about to kiss you." Normally, I would have coddled him, reassuring him after a self-deprecating joke like that. How could that be? Your kisses taste like sweet strawberries. But now, I had no patience for it. I just looked him up and down and said nothing. Which was basically an admission. Julian's face flushed crimson. As if desperate to prove something, he came over to finish that kiss. His hand clamped down on my shoulder, his grip so tight my bones ached. I frowned and shoved him away. "Julian, I'm really not in the mood for you right now." Up close, the desire churning in his eyes was unmistakable. So I watched as my words hit him like a punch, deflating him completely. "Clara, I'm hurting here. You doing this is going to give me a complex." He leaned in, his hoarse voice whispering in my ear. In my past life, of course, I couldn't have borne to see him suffer even a little. But now? I hope you have a complex for the rest of your life. I ignored him, quickly changed my clothes, and held out my hand. I didn't want to reject your proposal in front of our friends. But you know my parents have never been thrilled about you. The ring you're wearing, give it back for now. I need to think about it. That's right. To be considerate of Julian's financial situation, I had paid for almost the entire proposal myself, including the ring. All he had to do was perform the proposal. When I loved him, I would have given him mountains of gold. But now, with nothing but hate in my heart, I wouldn't spend another dime on him. Especially not when that ring was worth over $20,000. Julian was stunned, staring at me in disbelief. "Clara, I thought you were different from people like your parents, but I guess you're also." Before he could finish, smack. I slapped him across the face. I put all my long-suppressed anger into it. A red welt instantly appeared on his pale skin. "What do you mean, people like my parents?" I snapped, my brows furrowed. "Julian, respecting your elders is basic human decency. You want to marry me, but you don't even respect the people who raised me? It's hard for me not to question your character." Julian was dumbfounded by the slap. He didn't have time to wonder about my sudden change in attitude. He just stammered out an apology in a panic. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Clara, you know that's not what I meant." "No, I don't." I cut him off. "My dad always says you can't judge a book by its cover. He thinks you're with me for other reasons. Just yesterday, he chewed me out, saying a guy like you, from a poor family, with average abilities and nothing but a pretty face, is just a pretty boy. Fine for a fling, but dreaming of marrying into our family is just that, a dream." After hearing this, the flush drained from Julian's face, leaving it as white as paper. The shame and anger of having his sore spot poked made his chest heave, but he clenched his fists and couldn't say a word. While I was saying this to make him resent my dad, it was also what my dad had actually said. In my past life, I hid it from Julian, afraid of hurting his pride. I lied and told him my parents had a good impression of him. But now, it was time for a reality check. This way, he could see just how much I once loved him, willing to disregard everything for his sake. It would also make him understand that even if he helped Nina kill me and my mom, he would never get my dad's approval or be accepted by my family. Seeing Julian's reaction, I felt an explosion of satisfaction inside, but on the outside, I sighed as if I were helpless. Julian, you don't need to doubt my feelings for you. But we still need to figure out how to deal with my dad. He nodded, taking off the ring in a daze and handing it to me. He then urgently pulled me in by the waist. I never doubted you, Clara. This must be hard on you. I fought back my discomfort and let him hold me for half a minute before breaking free. As I was leaving, I turned back and looked him up and down with a smirk. But what are you going to do now that you're so worked up? I remember you have a close friend, a younger student. What was her name, Nina? You're not going to ask her to help you out, are you? Julian's body visibly stiffened. He forced a strained smile. How could I? Even though you're still hesitating, in my heart, I already see you as my wife. Clara Ling, I will be forever loyal to you. His eyes sparkled with a light so genuine that even after the painful lessons of my past life, my heart couldn't help but pound wildly. I laughed softly. Oh, I'm sure. I'll be watching your loyalty. And I'll see exactly who it's for. Outside the hotel, the night air was cool. The feeling of being bewitched that I'd had moments ago dissipated in the wind, and my head cleared considerably. I looked up and saw a Cayenne brazenly parked at the hotel entrance. A tall, slender man was leaning against the car, smoking. The red glow of the cigarette illuminated the sharp line of his jaw. A mess of cigarette butts lay at his feet. I walked over and tapped him on the shoulder. Get lost, he said coldly. Without looking up, he pulled a card out of his pocket and tossed it over. 10 grand. Plus the 10 grand from earlier, that should be enough to cover the fine for littering cigarette butts all night, right? Confused, I took the bank card and replied with a smile, thanks for the cash, boss. So generous. He looked up, and his glum expression instantly changed to one of pleasant surprise. Clara, what are you? He caught himself mid-sentence, forcing the smile from his lips. Shouldn't a newly engaged woman be upstairs, tumbling around with her fiancé? What are you doing down here? I sighed internally. This was Landon. Julian's good friend from college and also the son of the Lu Corporation's chairman. In my past life, I'd wondered how two people from such different worlds had become best friends. But I didn't think about it too much, because Landon was just too annoying. Whenever he saw me, he'd either scoff or make some snide remark. I always subconsciously kept my distance from him. So who would have thought? In the end, he was the only one, when everyone else had forgotten me, who insisted on finding out the truth about that fire. And finally, like a man possessed, he drove his car straight at Julian and Nina. The awful pair ended up one dead, one injured. And although the Lu family was powerful, they couldn't stop the tide of public opinion. Landon was thrown in jail. Yet in court, he smiled calmly and said he had no regrets. Now, I looked at the man in front of me. He reeked of tobacco smoke, but even his dejection couldn't hide the sharp aura of a man born to privilege. It was a world away from the gaunt figure I remembered from his imprisonment in my past life. A lump formed in my throat, and I sniffled. If you didn't know I was coming down, what were you waiting here for? In a hurry to pay a fine? Through a cloud of smoke, Landon lazily raised an eyebrow. I'm waiting for what I'm waiting for, and I can afford the fine. What's it to you? With that, he took off the gray overcoat he wore over his black suit and draped it over my shoulders. Some stupid women should learn to take care of themselves. Running out here without even bothering to wear more clothes. This guy was great in every way, except for that mouth of his. If I hadn't gotten a second chance, who would have ever noticed this difficult man? I hadn't felt cold before, but wrapped in the coat that still held his body heat, the sudden change in temperature made me shiver violently. Landon's brow furrowed slightly. He threw the newly lit cigarette on the ground, crushed it under his shoe, and without another word, pulled me into the passenger seat. "How long have you been waiting here?" I asked, rubbing my hands together. What if I hadn't come down? He turned on the heat, leaned over to fasten my seatbelt, and didn't seem inclined to answer. I did some quick mental math. Landon, as Julian's friend, was one of the witnesses to the proposal. In my past life, I was so overwhelmed with happiness, I only had eyes for Julian. I couldn't see anyone else's reaction and had eagerly dragged him to the hotel as soon as I said yes. Then we ordered food, ate, showered, and were wrapped up in each other's arms in between. All told, if Landon had followed us to the hotel back then, he must have been waiting for at least 3 hours. Just like that, waiting aimlessly. I gave him a deep look. So in my past life, the life where I didn't come down, how long did he wait here? How many packs of cigarettes did he go through? What are you staring at? Never seen a handsome guy before? Landon turned his face away, looking uncomfortable. I gathered my emotions, took his chin, and turned his head back, forcing him to look at me. Actually, I've never seen one this handsome. So, want to consider being my side piece? Landon's face instantly darkened as he demanded coldly. Clara Ling, do you know who you're talking to? The young master of the Liu family, the heir to the Liu Corporation. But all of that was so boring. Of course, I do. I unbuckled my seatbelt and lunged closer. I poked his chest lightly with my finger, lowering my voice as if sharing a secret. I'm asking my fiancé's best friend to be my man on the side. How thrilling is that? My warm breath washed over him, and Landon's ears and neck instantly turned red. He stared at me, his smile still cold. He looked out the car window, then back at me, all the anger from before completely suppressed. He just curled one side of his lip into a wicked, arrogant smirk and let out a soft scoff. The words that came out were, "Yeah, why not?" He looked as cool as a cucumber, but then he stomped on the gas, and the engine roared to life, loud enough to wake the dead. "By the way, what's your name?" I asked. He slammed on the brakes. If it weren't for the seatbelt, I think I would have been plastered to the windshield. Landon squinted, a dangerous aura spreading around him. "Clara Ling, are you sure you want to humiliate me like this?" It was a pretty pathetic thing to say, but his expression was still full of attitude. I sheepishly shrunk back. My bad, my bad. Landon, of course I know your name. But honestly, at this point in my past life, I had no idea what his name was. I just remembered he was really annoying. After we'd been driving for about 10 minutes, Landon leisurely asked where I wanted to go. I stretched. Whatever. Just find me a place to sleep. A soul doesn't need to sleep, but the exhaustion was immense. Right now, I felt like I'd walked a very, very long road, and every part of my body was screaming for rest. All right, we can go to my place, Landon said casually. Meeting my gaze, a corner of his mouth lifted. Didn't you want me to be your side piece? The drive was smooth. In a daze, I heard someone say, "We're here," but I was too lazy to move. Then, the car door beside me opened, my body felt light, and I was lifted into someone's arms. Whoa, 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 this is a bit much, I struggled. Don't move. If you fall, best case is a broken bone, worst case is brain damage, Landon said in a low voice. He really can't say anything nice, can he? Resigned, I wrapped my arms around his neck, feeling a little insecure. I looked up and met his smiling eyes. I thought you'd live downtown. What are you doing out here in the suburbs? Looking around, it was quiet, with a few scattered villas, their lights shining. It must be a luxury villa community nestled in the mountains. Thank you for not assuming I live in a bar, Landon glanced at me. My place in the city is for work. I usually live here. It's peaceful. Besides, I developed this project. The design is just right, exactly what I wanted. It took me a moment to process. This was Serenity Cove, a very successful luxury villa project from the last few years. My mom had made me study the materials for it and had lectured me endlessly, saying how other family heirs were already making their mark while all I did was fool around with boys. In my past life, I didn't care. Now, I actually felt a little ashamed. Especially since I was currently lying in the arms of one of those other family's kids. The moment Landon stepped inside, he carried me toward the bathroom. I struggled and jumped down, overwhelmed with sleepiness. No, I can't wait, I have to sleep. He paused, a smirk playing on his lips. That eager, huh? Fine by me. He slowly took off his jacket and tossed it on the sofa. He walked towards me, unbuttoning his cuffs and loosening his tie with one hand as he went. His steps were lazy, but his presence had a powerful, oppressive aura. In just a few steps, he had backed me against the wall. He braced one hand beside me and reached with the other toward my back. The zipper slid down, and a chill ran across my exposed skin. My brain finally started to turn again. Wait, what are you doing? Landon's eyes were dark, and he asked in a low voice. What do you think? Weren't you the one who asked me to be your side piece? His hands didn't stop for a second, and soon my shoulders were also exposed to the cool air. Two small flames began to dance cheerfully in his eyes. This was too much. My scalp tingled as I finally realized Landon was taking this side piece thing very seriously. With a nervous laugh, I clutched the barely there dress with one hand and held the other in front of me. The sleep I was talking about was just regular sleep. My head is killing me. Please, just let me get some sleep first. Landon stared into my eyes for a long moment, then took a step back as if to compromise, relaxing his hold. So I just deserve to be played like this, huh? Don't think I'll let you off the hook tomorrow morning. He spoke coldly, then zipped my dress back up. He walked over to the living room, grabbed a glass of ice water from the fridge, and chugged a couple of mouthfuls before casually pointing. The room on the second floor is my bedroom. The one next to it is the guest room. Pick one. He saw me hesitate. He squinted, raising an eyebrow, and added, You're the second woman I've brought into this house. The first was my mom. Got it. But I didn't sleep well that night. In my dreams, the fire raged again. My mother's figure was swallowed by the flames, and then the scene shifted to Landon in a prison uniform, a desolate figure walking the path to his cell. Helplessness and regret washed over me. I cried and screamed, my heart aching as if it were being torn apart. Then, an arm pulled me into an embrace, my back pressing against a warm chest. It's okay. Shoo. The low murmurs reached my ears, and I finally drifted into a deep sleep. You're awake? I blearily opened my eyes. Landon was leaning against the wall not far away, looking as if he'd been waiting for a while. Morning, I said, stretching. Suddenly, I remembered a certain difficult man had said he wouldn't let me off the hook this morning. My movement froze. It's already noon, princess, the difficult man himself said, seemingly having forgotten. He just rolled his eyes at me and tossed over a t-shirt. This'll have to do. I let out a long sigh of relief. Landon's shirt was huge on me, the hem reaching my mid-thigh. I decided to just go bare-legged, shuffling downstairs in a pair of slippers. Is there anything to eat? I'm starving. As soon as I spoke, I was met with a smiling face. A face I would never forget for the rest of my life. What is she doing here? I asked, pointing at Nina. Landon, dressed in dark loungewear, was casually leaning against the sofa, sipping a cup of freshly ground coffee. He seemed completely unfazed by this dramatic showdown. Or perhaps, he had orchestrated it intentionally and was enjoying the outcome. Oh, Nina said she wanted to bring me some crabs. I remembered you liked them, so I told her to come over. I looked at the dining table. In pristine white bowls were carefully picked crab meat and roe, served with a side of prepared ginger and vinegar sauce. There were also several hot, delicate snacks, which had clearly taken a lot of effort. Landon was Julian's college roommate, and Nina was Julian's junior. It wasn't strange that Landon and Nina knew each other. But, this was very interesting. So this two-faced schemer was stringing Julian along while secretly trying to hook Landon. Plan A was to be the long-lost heiress, Plan B was to be a trophy wife. She was playing both sides. When Nina saw me, the smile on her face froze for a moment, but then it quickly became even sweeter. "Clara, what are you doing at Landon's place?" Her gaze fell to my bare legs as she asked casually, "Did you just wake up?" My eye twitched. Damn it. I just found myself a side piece last night, hadn't even slept with him yet, and now I've been caught by my boyfriend's other woman. I turned and glared at Landon. The instigator of all this was leisurely sipping his coffee. When our eyes met, he just gave me a faint smile and mouthed the words, "It's fine." He was clearly just enjoying the drama. But no need to panic. This was actually good. I pulled out a chair and sat down, nonchalantly saying, "Yep," as I looked at the crabs on the table. "These are from your family's shop, right?" Nina waved her hands awkwardly. "My family doesn't sell things like this. A friend gave them to me, and I thought Landon would like them, so I was just regifting." Still pretending. Nina's mom was in the seafood business. There's no shame in earning a living with your own two hands. But Nina would never admit it. Even before being acknowledged by my family, she always acted like a little princess, as if she were above such worldly things. But Julian knew her background. I only found out later that she would often play the victim in front of him, pitifully claiming that I looked down on her, like a poor, bullied little flower. Hilarious. I never looked down on her. I never even saw her. But since I was already branded with the looks down on people label, I might as well own it. I looked at Nina with a fake smile and said breezily, "That's not right. I remember your family is in the seafood business, right? You have a little shop. If these crabs aren't from your place, are they from the shop next door?" She let out a small ah and looked nervously at Landon, explaining frantically, "Clara, don't say things like that. My family is in business." I really couldn't stand the way she categorized people into different classes. The seafood business is still a business. You shouldn't look down on people in the primary sector, okay? Especially when that person is your mom. Nina's eyelashes fluttered, and she looked like she was about to cry, still wanting to argue. But I slowly shifted my attack. "And don't be embarrassed. Julian told me all about it. He even complained to me that you have this fishy smell about you, that it's disgusting. It was rude of him to say it behind your back, but I should still apologize to you on his behalf." For someone as vain and obsessed with appearances as Nina, her entire being was a weak spot. My slightly teasing words were already an unbearable humiliation for her, let alone such a direct insult. What's more, I was saying it as if it came from Julian, and Julian knew her inside and out. Nina stopped trying to explain, terrified I might reveal something else in front of Landon. Her knuckles turned white as she gripped the dining table, her whole body trembling slightly. Though she tried desperately to hold it in, tears began to fall like broken strings of pearls. "Don't cry, don't cry." I pulled out a tissue and handed it to her, saying intentionally, "Don't worry, your dear Landon isn't going to look down on you just because your family sells seafood." Nina cried even harder, looking at Landon with a mix of helplessness and hope. But he seemed completely oblivious, lounging on the sofa, casually flipping through a financial magazine. I quickly jumped in to speak for him. "See? I was right. Your Landon doesn't even see you." Nina was on the verge of a complete breakdown. Utterly humiliated, she could only stammer her goodbyes. I should go now, Landon." "Okay, see you out." Although Nina shot me an inconspicuous glare, I gave her a brilliant smile. I felt so good I could almost bubble over with joy. Humming a little tune, I swept everything on the table into the trash can. Watching Nina's fleeing figure, Landon finally put down his cup and leisurely straightened his clothes. "So, feel better?" I grinned and nodded. "A little." Nina thought Julian was her most loyal lapdog, but now she discovered that the dog would sell out its master behind her back. How furious must she be? The crack between them had been sown. As for Julian, I wasn't afraid of Nina retaliating and tattling on me. That would only make the crack between them wider. Two vicious dogs fighting in their own den, it was going to be a great show. Shouldn't you make me happy now? Landon leaned back, spreading his hands. An invitation to fall into his arms. A flash of inspiration struck me. I leaned down, getting closer with suspicion. By the way, do you know something too? I thought Landon had also been reborn. Otherwise, why would he have called over a non-player character like Nina to deliver some crabs? But no. He had simply heard me muttering in my sleep last night, sensed my hatred for Nina, and called her over first thing in the morning so I could let off some steam. Great. But the problem was, I shouldn't have leaned over. Landon's shirt was way too big on me, with a wide collar. The previously composed man, who had been sitting upright, was now staring at me with a burning gaze after just a few words. Before I could get any useful information out of him, the world spun, and I was on the sofa. It was because of her last night, wasn't it? You found out she and Julian had been hooking up for a while, and that's why you were so upset you couldn't sleep. He pinned my struggling hands, his slightly hoarse voice whispering in my ear. People like her, I have plenty of ways to deal with them for you. It's not worth letting this get in the way of our business. He bit down hard on the word business, his voice playful. Just as my mind was starting to go fuzzy, the phone on the table next to us rang. I glanced at the screen. It was Julian. I was about to hang up, but Landon beat me to it and answered. I couldn't help but let out a muffled grunt and glared at him. The troublemaker just raised an eyebrow, a triumphant look on his face. Clara, are you okay? Where did you go last night? I called, but you didn't pick up. Julian's gentle voice came through the phone. Over a dozen missed calls. Before, I would have found it heartwarming. Now, it was just annoying, and I didn't want to reply. But in that moment, I deeply regretted it. I grit my teeth and managed to answer, if you have something to say, say it. If not, hang up. Julian paused, his voice a little awkward. It's nothing, really. It's just that you said you would get me a job at Ling Corp. I got a notice today, saying I'm supposed to. His reluctance was clear even through the phone, saying I'm supposed to be a warehouse keeper. In my past life, I had also begged and pleaded to get Julian a job. Ling Corp didn't care about connections, only ability. I was just a regular employee in the product department myself, yet I had forced my mom to make Julian a manager in the sales department. Sales requires professional skills and emotional intelligence, and unfortunately, he was mediocre in both. He caused a huge mess just a few days after starting, leaving my mom stressed out and scolding me several times. This time, I wasn't going to be such a fool. Last night before bed, despite my headache, I had arranged a job for Julian. Warehouse keeper. It suited him. Pushing Landon away, I took a breath and said, feigning helplessness. There was nothing I could do. Originally, my dad said you could only be a security guard. I had to fight really hard just to get you this warehouse keeper position. I know that for someone with your qualifications, being a warehouse keeper is beneath you, but you were the one who said you wanted to work at Ling Corp to be closer to me, right? What do you call this? Hoisted by his own petard. Julian originally wanted to use me to get a good position, but now he was stuck in a place he couldn't get out of. Sure enough, there was silence on the other end of the phone. Landon, however, let out a soft, mocking laugh. Clara, who are you with? Julian noticed. In an instant, I was terrified. I sat up and clamped my hand over Landon's mouth. No one's here. Oh, maybe it's the driver. He's rushing me, so I gotta go, bye. Guilt-ridden, I quickly hung up. But I felt a wet, soft warmth on my palm. My heart skipped a beat. I quickly pulled my hand back and shot him a completely non-threatening glare. You really think you can just use me and throw me away? He smiled coolly, leaned in, and moved his head closer to my neck. There was no way to hide the hickey on my neck. Before leaving, I thought about wearing a scarf, but he stopped me. Don't. It's pretty. Landon rubbed the red mark with his thumb, proudly admiring his handiwork. I brought my high-heeled foot down hard on his shiny shoe. A howl echoed in my ears. Don't stop, it sounds lovely, I said, lifting my chin as I strutted away. I've figured it out. Landon is serious about being my side piece. And he's serious about wanting to get caught. A difficult man is a difficult man. He was difficult when he hated me, and he's even more difficult now that he likes me. He's such a dog. Mr. Liu, drive, I said, sliding into the back seat with an air of authority. Landon smirked at me in the rearview mirror, squeezing a few words through his teeth. You got it. Buckle up. On the way, we actually ran into Nina. This was the suburbs, and it was hard to get a cab, but there was no way she was walking all the way back. Sure enough, as the window rolled down, Nina's weak voice trembled, thick with manufactured sweetness. Landon, I twisted my ankle. Can you take me to the hospital? Landon didn't even shift his position, just turned his head to look. You shouldn't move a sprained ankle. It's better to call 911, they're professionals. I lowered the back window and, meeting Nina's stunned gaze, I smiled. Yeah, you should call right away. Otherwise, your foot might get better. Then I tapped the front seat. Let's get going, Mr. Liu. I'm really spoiling you rotten. Landon scoffed, rolled up the window, and stepped on the gas. Through the rear windshield, I watched Nina's lonely figure shrink into a tiny dot. I laughed out loud. Her damsel in distress act doesn't work on everyone. The more clear-headed someone is, the more they know that sweet tea is just poison. Ling Corporation. Before knocking on my mom's office door, I felt a wave of anxiety. Since my rebirth, I had constantly worried that this was all a dream. Now, that fear was especially strong. I wanted to see my mom again so badly. In my past life, I resented her for nagging, for meddling too much, for caring more about the company than her own daughter. But in that fire, she was the only one who rushed in to save me without a second thought. At that moment, I wanted to stop her, to tell her I was already dead, but she ran too fast, passing through my soul again and again. I was so relieved when I saw someone grab her at the last second, but then I watched, helpless, as she rushed in anyway. Because she said that without me, she couldn't go on living. Seeing me take deep breaths, Landon found it amusing but still gave my palm a fond squeeze. It's okay, don't be afraid. I nodded and pushed the door open. The afternoon sun was lovely. My mom was propping up her chin with one hand, seemingly dozing off. Under her arm was a thick stack of financial reports. I pulled down the blinds to block the direct sunlight. When I turned around, she was already awake, putting her glasses back on. Through the cool lenses, her gaze had an added layer of severity. So you finally decided to show up for work. You missed half a day, I'm docking a full day's pay. I stuck out my tongue and leaned against her. I'm sorry, it won't happen again. She snorted. There you go again with that. But her hand gently patted my head. You're in your 20s, but you still act like a child. Her eyes fell on the hickey on my neck, paused for a moment, and finally, she sighed in resignation. She looked down and rummaged through her desk, pulling out a document. It was Julian's resume. You said before you wanted to arrange a management-level position for him. After evaluating, I don't think it's suitable. He lacks experience. In my last life, I thought my mom disagreed with making Julian a manager just to be difficult, that she didn't understand his abilities. Now I knew, it was because she understood them all too well. I took the resume from her hand. That's okay. I've already arranged something for him. Before her brow could furrow, I quickly said, warehouse keeper. He should be able to handle that. I gently massaged her shoulders. Don't worry, Mom. I won't be so willful anymore. By the way, I thought for a moment, then asked, do you think Dad is loyal to you? The answer I got was yes. My mom was a shrewd businesswoman in her career, but a bit of a naive fool when it came to love. Which probably explains where I get it from. Until I have proof, or until I've prepared her enough mentally, I don't plan on telling her the truth. Outside the office, Landon was on the phone, leaning back on the sofa. It was probably about business. After a moment's thought, he effortlessly provided a solution. He looked like a lazy but majestic big cat, hard to tame. The next second, Landon saw me, muttered a few perfunctory words, and hung up. Mr. Liu is so busy. You should probably get back to Liu Corp, I teased. He grabbed my hand and pulled me into his lap with a single motion. But I want to marry into Ling Corp, he said, before placing a kiss on my lips. I took back control, nipping his tongue in return. Liu Corp is much bigger than Ling Corp. We can't afford a giant like you. Just now, when Landon walked to the entrance, the receptionist ran over, more enthusiastic than she is when my mom arrives, asking if she should notify the company leadership. He had to stop her, repeatedly stating he wasn't here on business, so that we could have a quiet moment on the sofa. Landon winced in pain and cupped my chin. His gesture was domineering, but the words that came out were, "Then I'll give you Liu Corp as a dowry." I pretended to ponder this seriously. Such a grand gesture. I suppose I can reluctantly consider letting you move up the ranks. After our playful banter, Landon produced a stack of papers. They were still warm, fresh from the printer. This is the stuff you wanted. I had someone look into it. I skimmed through it. It was more than enough, even more than I had expected. Clara, what do you need this for? He asked, sensing something was off. Julian cheating with Nina isn't that complicated. If it were just about cheating, it would be easy to handle. Unfortunately, there was a vicious plot behind it involving my parents, which was the trickier part. I tossed my hair back and replied lightly, "Don't worry. Just watch me." I took the stack of papers and pushed open my dad's office door. Unsurprisingly, the background music of a card game filled the room. The story goes that when Ling Corp was passed down to my grandfather, it was already failing. Everyone was just waiting for it to go bankrupt so they could split the assets. Then, with a wave of his hand, the old man insisted on giving my mom full control of the business. Thanks to my mom's management over the decades, Ling Corp was restored to its former glory and returned to the list of top 100 corporations. As for my dad, he was just a figurehead who took the money and did nothing. As I walked in, he had just lost a round and decided to turn off his phone. He pulled a bottle of Coke from the mini fridge under his desk and tossed it to me. "Hey, Clara's here. Want your old dad to take you out somewhere fun?" In my past life, compared to my mom, I preferred my dad because he didn't control me. But after seeing everything that happened, I realized he didn't control me simply because he didn't care. He was a heartless man who didn't even care about Nina and her mother. The only person he cared about was himself. Knowing this, I put the Coke aside and pushed the stack of papers in front of him, lowering my voice conspiratorially. "Dad, you're in trouble." Seeing my serious expression, my dad's smile vanished. For once, he looked at the document seriously. As he read, his face turned from red to white, and beads of sweat formed on his forehead. The documents were about Nina and her mom. From my dad's affair to Nina's birth certificate, and the financial records of him secretly supporting them, it was all there. I tapped my fingers on the desk. "This girl, Nina, she's been secretly sending this stuff to our house." I intercepted it. "Dad, they're trying to blackmail you." I didn't mention the affair at all, playing the part of the clueless, loyal daughter, completely on my dad's side, righteously indignant. "Dad, I've seen how good you are to Mom. How could you possibly cheat on her? That's what a scumbag would do, right?" My dad chuckled nervously, pulling out a tissue to wipe his forehead. Of course. "Dad, don't worry." I pressed my hand firmly on his shoulder. "Mom and I will definitely not let these despicable people get away with this. They're going to get what's coming to them." With that, I stormed out, fuming. Just as I reached the door, my dad called out, "Hey, wait. Don't tell your mom yet. I'll handle these two blackmailers myself." I gave him an okay sign. In the split second before the door closed, I saw my dad frantically dialing a number, muttering angrily, "Those two are nothing but trouble." The foolish smile on my face instantly vanished, replaced by a deeper sense of desolation. When I was little, my mom used to tell me fairy tales. She always said that bad guys weren't hard to deal with, because every bad person has their own brand of bad, and they can't unite. Good people are stronger. They trust and support each other, becoming an unbreakable force that can overcome any obstacle. I still believe that. The only sad thing is, I used to think everyone around me was a good person. I never imagined they had so many secrets, that they were so fragile. But I only had a minute for melancholy. Because outside the door was a war zone. Julian was chatting with Landon. Julian was holding his new work ID, talking about something. Landon was responding half-heartedly, his eyes darting towards me. In an instant, I felt a chill run down my spine and turned to hide back in my dad's office. "Clara, you're here." Julian called out to me. He came over and took my arm, his touch natural and affectionate. But his eyes held a hint of surprise. Because today I was wearing a red dress and had my hair in big waves, a look he had never seen on me before. "My Clara, you look so beautiful today," he praised proudly. His gaze fell on the hickey on my neck and froze. After a long pause, Julian finally spoke. "Last night, I followed you out of the hotel. I saw you get into Landon's Cayenne. Today, Nina called and told me you spent the night at Landon's." His voice held a barely perceptible catch. But I didn't want to believe it. "We love each other so much, Clara." Did Julian and I ever love each other? I really wanted to ask. Julian was actually a very jealous person. To put it nicely, you could call it self-respect, but it was essentially a kind of insecurity. He was unwilling to give an inch more than he received in a relationship. In my past life, I loved him one-sidedly. He fully enjoyed my love but was still not satisfied and had to offer his loyalty to someone else. And in this life, I had woken up. The love was gone. I asked Landon to be my side piece partly for the thrill, and partly, I admit, out of a desire for revenge. What does it feel like to be betrayed by the person closest to you? What does it feel like to be played for a fool, kept in the dark? It was time for him to get a taste of it. Unfortunately, Landon was a little too extra. He dramatically stepped in front of me, as if afraid people didn't know he was the other man. "Julian, I'm a man who takes responsibility for his actions. If you have a problem, take it up with me. Don't make things difficult for Clara." I silently face-bombed. A death by 1,000 cuts is what truly hurts. The wife is not as good as the concubine, and the concubine is not as good as the stolen fruit is what truly satisfies. But Landon didn't want satisfaction. He just wanted to be promoted. I don't get it. Is this some kind of alpha CEO work ethic? In the most soundproof conference room at Ling Corporation. To prevent a headline-making incident, Landon and Julian were seated on opposite sides. "Clara, come sit next to me," Julian called softly, his eyes full of hope. Landon, casually swinging his leg, pulled out the chair next to him. "Come on, Clara, sit here." I was speechless. I plopped myself down in the chairman's seat. "Landon, I really thought of you as a brother," Julian said coldly. "You've disappointed me deeply." "Oh, my bad," Landon retorted provocatively. "But I never thought of you as a brother." Not expecting such a blunt response, Julian slammed his fist on the table in frustration. Landon continued slowly, "After all, I don't consider a relationship based on personal gain to be a brotherhood." Julian's face flushed beet red. "What do you mean? You think I befriended you because you're the son of the Lu Corporation's chairman?" Landon raised an eyebrow. "Aren't you?" Julian took a few deep breaths, then suddenly let out a low laugh. "Don't act so high and mighty. You only got close to me for Clara Ling. The tension that had been crackling between them suddenly focused entirely on me. I blinked innocently. Landon looked away from me and smiled faintly. Fine, I admit it. My intentions were impure. We're even. Pure intentions? My mind went blank. In college, I happened to visit Julian's school and fell for the cool, handsome campus heartthrob. To pursue him, I often went to their school to treat him to meals, drinks, and fun. And back then, he always had a cold-faced friend with him, Landon. Every time I saw that imposing figure, I felt intimidated. Seeing that he never seemed very willing to be there, I even advised Julian not to bring him along. I never would have guessed. Landon's intentions had been impure all along. He had been the one to approach Julian. I started coughing violently. In an instant, both men were by my side. A bottle of mineral water with the cap twisted off, and a glass of perfectly mixed warm water were urgently offered to me. The moment I took the warm water from Landon's hand, Julian's eyes turned red, a vein popping on his forehead. He slammed the bottle to the ground. Bang! The sound made me scream and cover my ears. Julian was always so gentle and refined. This was the first time I had ever seen him so angry. Landon stepped forward, his tall frame completely shielding me, and quietly told me to move towards the door. He turned, grabbed Julian by the collar, and slammed him against the wall. Julian, what right do you have to be angry? Clara was so good to you, and how did you treat her? What face do you have to come in here throwing things around? A look of panic crossed Julian's face. That's between us, it has nothing to do with you. Don't talk nonsense. Landon sneered. I didn't interfere before because I respected Clara's choice. But now, her business is my business. He glanced at me and raised his eyebrows smugly. I'm her side piece now. I nearly coughed up blood. Landon was probably the most arrogant and proud side piece I had ever seen in my life. Faced with such a provocative person, Julian struggled to break his grip. Unsuccessful, he looked at me pleadingly. Clara, stop messing around. You already accepted my proposal yesterday. I'll just pretend none of this ever happened. Even now, his words still implied that I was the one in the wrong. Landon punched him in the face. Shut up. Messing around? I sneered. If this is me messing around, then are you and Nina being serious? Julian clutched his swelling cheek, instantly flustered. You know? He lowered his head, then looked up again, explaining anxiously. No, that's not it. Nina and I are over. Clara, the only person I love is you. At this moment, I looked at Julian calmly. Watching the ice prince I once loved to the bone, now crushed and trampled into the dirt, I felt surprisingly little. Perhaps it's because I had long since realized that this flower was beautiful on the outside but rotten on the inside. But I don't love you anymore, I replied flatly. Julian's face turned ashen. Then, as if remembering something, his eyes widened in shock. Clara, you threw up last night. Don't tell me you're all ready, he trailed off, trembling. I was still trying to figure out already what? Landon lifted his chin again. That's right. And the baby's mine. He was on a killing spree. I stood by the door, too shocked to know what to do. What baby? But I quickly realized that when it comes to a man's weak spots, it takes another man to know them best. After Landon's declaration, Julian was too stunned to speak, completely drained of strength, and slid down the wall to sit on the floor. So you two were all ready? That's right, I was the first to admit it this time. Since I was already playing the role of the bad girl, I might as well go all in. Let him have an immersive experience of the pain of being deceived and betrayed by a loved one. Julian lowered his head, his hands tangled in his hair, pulling at it in agony. The veins on the back of his hands stood out. But he seemed to feel no pain. After a long while, a muffled sob escaped him. I'm sorry. I still lost you, Clara. Yes, you did. The girl who was once willing to defy her parents to love him was left in a fire, and finally, the pain woke her up. When I opened the conference room door, my mom was already waiting anxiously outside. Seeing me come out, she nervously pulled me into a spin. "As long as you're not hurt." Then her voice turned urgent. "Do you know how dangerous that was? I've sent you so many news articles about ex-boyfriends killing their ex-girlfriends. Why don't you ever take it to heart?" I shrank back. "Mom, I know what I'm doing." Landon nervously straightened his clothes and shook my mom's hand with standard business etiquette. "Auntie, don't worry. As long as I'm here, Clara will be fine." My mom's suspicious gaze shifted between Landon and me. Finally, she smiled and shook her head. "The fate between you two is strange indeed. But if it's Mr. Liu, I do feel more at ease." Julian stood nearby, looking disheveled and defeated. Hearing this, he managed a forced, awkward smile. He walked up to my mom and bowed deeply. "Auntie, I'm the one who hurt Clara. I'm so sorry." He straightened up, then bowed again, this time with his head hung low, saying nothing. My mom didn't have anything personal against Julian, only advising him that when young people date, they should part amicably if things don't work out. Before leaving Ling Corp, Julian looked at me for a long time. From our school days to entering the workforce, our relationship spanned several years of our youth. It's not easy for anyone to let go of that. But when he asked for one last hug, I refused. "Landon, take good care of Clara," Julian said. Landon snorted. "I'll take good care of my own wife, of course. You don't need to worry about her anymore." Then, he leaned down and whispered in my ear, "Right? Right? Can I be promoted now?" All of Landon's antics from yesterday to today were probably for this one moment. But speaking of this moment, I'm not sure how long he had been waiting for it. Those 3 hours outside the hotel? His silent watching during our school days? Or maybe even longer. The thought of the man in my past life who would stop at nothing to avenge me made my heart melt into a soft puddle. "Of course, boyfriend," I chuckled. As soon as I said it, he cupped my face, his thumb rubbing my lips forcefully. "Not enough. I'm very greedy. Call me husband." The pressure hurt, and I almost gave in. Thankfully, his phone rang. He spoke a few hurried words and hung up. He winked at me. The show's about to start. On the other side, my mom was rushing out of her office with her coat, looking like she had also been notified. "Mom, we'll go with you," I said, pulling Landon along. My mom hesitated for a moment, then relented. I guessed she already had a feeling about what was about to happen. Before we even got to the police station, I saw the news notification pop up on my phone. Shocking. Ling Corp chairman's husband in public brawl. Claims blackmail by mistress, but appearance of another man stuns all. The headline was cringe-worthy. I clicked on it. There were several high-definition photos of my dad in a heated brawl with several people, his face contorted and bruised. I quickly turned off my phone, afraid my mom would see it. Dodging a few reporters outside the police station, we went inside and saw my dad in an interrogation room. The man who had always been a gentle, refined figure in my mind now had messy hair, revealing the gray strands within. His glasses were broken, one lens shattered like a spiderweb, perched pitifully on his nose. His eye was bruised, and there was still a trace of blood at the corner of his lip. This man, who was usually so concerned with his image, rushed over to my mom the moment he saw her and grabbed her hands. "Honey, you have to believe me, those two were blackmailing me." His desperation only made him look more guilty. My mom glanced at him and calmly pulled her hands away. She quickly got the full story. After believing my story, my dad had panicked. After all, my mom was the pillar of the family, the golden goose he had to hold on to tightly. In the last life, when my mom died, he had gone along with acknowledging Nina and her mother because it didn't affect his interests. But in this life, my mom, his money tree, was still around. If Nina and her mother tried to stir up trouble, my dad would be the first to object. So, He took the documents I gave him and rushed over to confront them, mostly wanting to throw money at the problem to make it go away. Unfortunately, he walked in on Nina's mom having a tryst with her younger boyfriend. A cheating man being cheated on by his own mistress. Both men lost their minds. They started fighting right there, spilling from the little crab shop out into the street. The most tragic figure was Nina's mom, caught in the middle with her clothes in disarray. Uncensored photos of her were being passed around in numerous chat groups. A trashy drama like this definitely deserved to go viral. I silently glanced at Landon. Our eyes met. Sure enough, the convenient appearance of Nina's mom's boyfriend was also thanks to the charm of money. It was better to make a big scene, to tear off every last shred of pretense. My mom had seen it all. Admitting fault, paying fines, apologizing, in less than 10 minutes, she handled the whole thing with grace and efficiency. Then she borrowed the interrogation room for 20 minutes to have it out with my dad. She didn't try to hide anything from Landon or me. They sat opposite each other. My mom's eyes were calm as she looked through the documents. My dad, however, kept darting his eyes away, itching to snatch them back. I saw the girl's birthday. By my calculation, you two must have gotten together while I was pregnant with Clara, right? Yes, but I was a high-risk pregnancy. I had a difficult birth, and then I got postpartum depression. That was the darkest time of my life. Unfortunately, you couldn't be there for me. You said it was because of work, right? Honey, I'm sorry, but So you couldn't be with me then because you were with another woman. To be precise, you were cheating on me with another woman, right? You were so unreasonable back then, I couldn't take it, so For all these years, you've helped that woman raise her child, support her little boyfriend, and even funded her business. A lot of that money came from the company's accounts, right? Honey, that woman was blackmailing me, I had no choice. Finally, my mom nodded, said nothing more, and turned to leave. She didn't even glance at Nina's mom, who was crying in the next interrogation room. Once he was out, my dad was back to his old self, but he followed my mom meekly, not daring to breathe too loudly. My mom tucked a stray hair behind her ear, straightened her smart suit, and walked calmly to the police station entrance. Immediately, a crowd of reporters with their cameras and microphones surrounded her. Under the flashing lights, my mom wore her usual smile. Because my husband has done something unforgivable, I will be filing for a divorce by mutual agreement soon. He holds no real power in Ling Corporation, and he will be leaving with nothing, so this will not affect the company's equity distribution. Our investors have no need to worry about the future of Ling. Her voice was calm, but her words were powerful. On the way back, my dad tried to get into our car, but my mom signaled for Landon to make him get out. Not long after, my mom got a call from my dad. Through the earpiece, his trembling, furious voice was clear. What do you mean? What do you mean I'm leaving with nothing? My last name is Ling. You're just an outsider in the Ling family. My mom laughed sarcastically, the word outsider rolling around in her throat. Perhaps this is a case of father knows son best. When the old man gave me control of the business back then, he made us sign a special agreement. If either of us cheated during the marriage, we would leave with nothing. Old Ling, you were so happy about inheriting the fortune back then, you didn't pay attention, did you? There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone before he started to sound flustered. How is that possible? How could my dad make me sign something like that? Isn't that favoring you? Favoring me? My mom chuckled. He was just favoring the more loyal person. The old man was afraid that someone with bad intentions would interfere with the management of Ling Corp. My dad's voice immediately rose, and he started shouting incoherently, "No way, I don't believe it. Honey, I was wrong, please forgive me this one time. I can't leave with nothing." My mom hung up and sighed. I had been holding her shoulder the whole time, and with that one sigh, it felt like she had aged 10 years. My mom reassuringly patted my hair, then turned and nodded slightly at Landon. The first day Clara brings you home, and you have to witness a scene like this. I'm sorry you had to see that, Mr. Liu. Landon's voice was deep. It's nothing. The Liu family has seen its share of this. Where there's a lot of people and money, there's bound to be some dirt. But Auntie, I know what you're worried about. You can rest assured, I will be good to Clara for the rest of my life. For the first time, a genuinely pleased smile appeared on my mom's face, a smile that actually reached her eyes. She turned to look at me. Life is like drinking water, only you know if it's cold or warm. I've thrown myself into my work all these years, and deep down, I know why. It's not that I don't get tired, but every time I see Clara's happy face, I feel like it's all worth it. As a parent, everything I've done in my life has been for Clara's happiness. In that moment, the light shining in her eyes was the same as it was in my past life, just before she rushed into the fire. I couldn't help but bury my face in her shoulder and sob. My mom was efficient. In no time, all the divorce papers and procedures were completed. The funny thing was, instead of falling, Ling Corp's stock price actually rose after the divorce. The shareholders celebrated as if it were a major holiday. We've gotten rid of the parasite. We strongly demand he be held accountable and compensate for financial losses. Now the chairwoman can focus more on the business. Making money is better than dealing with men. Of course, my dad tried to make more trouble. He only cared about himself. Cutting off his money supply was worse than killing him. With no regard for their decade-plus relationship, he held up banners in front of Ling Corp, staged a suicide attempt, and even invited reporters to cover it, trying to use public opinion to pressure her. But he didn't even need my mom to step in. Nina's mom was even better at making a scene than he was. It takes a villain to beat a villain, and Nina's mom's boyfriend was no slouch either. The three of them got into a huge fight, and after a few too many times, they were taken away by the police to spend some time behind bars. My dad tried to contact me, but I ignored him. If he had shed even a single tear for me and my mom in the past life, I wouldn't be so heartless. In the end, the reporters published a series of spectacular stories, but none of them had anything to do with Ling Corp. Watching this trashy saga of love and hate, who wouldn't grab a handful of sunflower seeds and marvel at the twisted nature of humanity? The collateral damage, of course, was Nina. She hid and didn't dare show her face, whether it was when her mom was brawling in the streets or when she was hauled off to the police station. But the power of the internet is mighty. In a story of rich family drama, the secret daughter is always the most talked about part. Everything about Nina was dug up, down to the last detail. Not only was she socially dead online, but I heard she also lost her job. I even saw a 5 megabytes PDF being passed around in chat groups, with information so detailed it included her height and weight. One chapter was dedicated to the black history of her years-long effort to create a fake persona to snag a rich husband and break into the upper echelons of society. After reading it, Landon patted his chest with a look of someone who had just survived a close call. Thank God I'm a man of integrity. I never would have touched someone like that. The problem was, he was patting my chest. You pervert. I launched myself at him, trying to tackle him. But I was the one who ended up pinned underneath him. Since my wife is calling me a pervert, then I won't be polite. After the passion faded, I lay lazily in Landon's arms, poking his abs. I never understood why you were so mean to me before. You never said a single nice thing. Landon's voice was a little hoarse as he sneered, look who's talking about not doing the right thing. Is he calling me out? I struggled to sit up, but he quickly pinned me back down in his arms. You had the nerve to ask me to be your side piece right off the bat. You've got guts, I'll give you that. Anyone else would have been dead a few times over. Good thing I'm smart and capable enough to have been promoted to the main position. I had to concede that point and laughed sheepishly. It was for the thrill. But you never gave me the time of day before, why? Didn't you say you liked me? Landon lifted his eyelids, his gaze sharp and judgmental. Bad girl. Figure it out yourself. I made a sad face, of course I couldn't figure it out. But he refused to give me any more hints. Since I'd already been labeled a bad girl, I decided to bring him a lovingly prepared dinner while he was working late. In the underground parking garage, just as I reached his car, I heard the faint sound of footsteps behind me. I looked around, but there was no one there. But a bad feeling washed over me, and I turned to leave. "Clara Ling, I've been waiting for you for a long time." A figure emerged from behind the car. Small and thin, with a large mask that covered most of her face. The pair of eyes that were visible gleamed with a cold light, like a snake's. It was Nina. Why is it that we have the same father, but our fates are so different? I don't accept it. I don't. A cackling laugh escaped her throat, just like her crazed state in the fire from my past life. My blood ran cold, and I turned to run. But she was prepared. She was holding a bottle, and she violently threw the transparent liquid at me. I quickly covered my face. The pain I expected never came. Instead, a tortured scream of awe erupted in front of me. I opened my eyes. Julian had appeared out of nowhere and shielded me. The liquid had splashed all over the left side of his face. It quickly burned and charred his skin, visibly decaying. He collapsed to the ground, writhing in agony. I frantically looked for water to wash it off, but it was useless. Sulfuric acid. It only takes 10 seconds to cause devastating damage to the human body. Nina was quickly apprehended. The facts of the crime were clear: intentional injury, causing disfigurement. With the help of the lawyer I hired, she was sentenced to enough time to rot in jail. But Julian's injuries weighed heavily on my mind. At the hospital, he finally had the bandages removed from his face. The handsome face I was once obsessed with was now horribly disfigured. His ear was corroded, and his face and neck were severely burned. But he managed a slight smile, and a hoarse sound came from his throat. "Clara, don't cry. This is me paying you back. I'm willing." He took a tissue from the bedside table to wipe the tears from my eyes. His vision was also affected, so his movements were very light and slow. "Clara, I had a dream. In the dream, I caused you and Auntie to die in a fire." He only said the beginning, then looked straight at me. Our eyes met, and I gasped and grabbed his hand. Everything became clear. A faint smile hung on the uninjured side of his face, his eyes shining. "Actually, from the change in your attitude, I already guessed that the dream was probably the reality of another parallel universe, and that you experienced it too. Clara, you might not believe me, but I was originally going to go back and save you. But the fire spread, and the ceiling decorations burned and fell, blocking my way. It was only later that I realized Nina had lied to me about a lot of things. She said you were an arrogant princess, she said you started the fire, she said you were just playing with my feelings. But the stupidest thing is, I believed it all. In front of you, I was always so insecure, I didn't dare to believe in your feelings. I was so stupid. After waking up from the dream, I tried so hard to protect you, to keep you, but unfortunately, it was too late. I still lost you. It was indeed too late. The moment I died in the fire, I really wanted to ask Julian if he had ever loved me. But after everything that happened, whether he loved me or not, I no longer cared. Actions speak louder than words. It wasn't a parallel universe. That really happened to us, I explained with a small smile. You can think of it as a past life, and a rebirth. Julian, do you know, there really are 18 levels of hell? I climbed through every single one to get a chance to come back to the world of the living. I used to think that the hatred I had for you all was what kept me going through the fire and brimstone. But coming back a second time, I realized that what I care about more is love and gratitude. What you said is all in the past, and I hope you can move on too. Thank you for saving me. If you ever need anything in the future, you can contact me or Landon at any time. The light that had been shining in Julian's eyes completely dimmed. As I walked out of the hospital room, I was unceremoniously pulled into an embrace. Landon nibbled on my earlobe, his breath hot and urgent, his bite sharp enough to sting. Tell me, what was my ending in the last life? Did I go to save you? Why is it you and him who get to be reborn? It's not fair. I want to be with you for 2 lifetimes too. I was already used to Landon's behavior, a domineering CEO to the world, but a 3-year-old with me. I pushed him gently. Ow, be gentle. Many memories from my past life were things I didn't want to recall. But when I was going through the 18 levels of hell, whenever I wanted to give up, the images of my mom and Landon would flash before my eyes. You, always so sarcastic with me, never saying anything nice. I never would have guessed you were so eager to be a side piece. In the last life, I invited you to my engagement party, but you threw the invitation in the trash right in front of me. After I died, you became a wreck, crazier than Nina, and ended up driving your car straight at them. I smiled as I spoke, reaching up to touch his constantly bobbing Adam's apple. Landon's grip on my waist tightened, as if in fear. Thank God we didn't miss each other this time. He then shot me a reproachful look, his tone aggrieved. It's all your fault for having bad eyesight. You never even looked at me properly. I call you a bad girl and you won't admit it. We had an arranged childhood betrothal. My dad brought me to your house to discuss the engagement, and you didn't even show your face. You just casually brushed me off with I like someone else. That was one of the most humiliating moments of my life. The second most humiliating moment was agreeing to be your side piece. After his tirade, I was stunned. I had no memory of that ever happening. But I couldn't argue, or I'd just be solidifying my bad girl status. No wonder my mom had teased me before, saying our fate was strange. So that was it. We had missed each other so many times in the last life. Thankfully, this time, we held on tight to each other. Don't worry, I'll be good to you from now on. I won't be a bad girl anymore, I promised. Landon lowered his head and looked up at me. What about the baby? What do we do? Then he punched the wall in self-loathing. Forget it. It doesn't matter whose it is, it's going to have to call me, Landon Lou, Dad. I looked at the man who had just managed to talk himself into a corner and said hesitantly. Is there any possibility that I'm not actually pregnant? Huh? Surprise flashed in Landon's eyes, and his lips threatened to curl up to his ears. He quickly suppressed it, his brows furrowing in feigned regret. Well, that's a shame. But we still need to have a baby. Don't worry, hubby's here to help you. Help me? Help me with what? In my confusion, I had already lost control of my body. No, that's not what I meant. It's fine. I'm choosing to understand it this way.